welcome to the California Glove podcast. I am one of your hosts. My name is Jordan Rogers, and I am along with
Joshua Iversen. Hope y'all are doing great today. We got a good show planned for you. We're just going to run through the end of season Major League Baseball awards. So right now we're in the middle of the postseason. The voting for all of these awards is already concluded at the end of the regular season. And we're just going to do a rundown now of our picks for each of the major awards in both leagues. So I'll be handling the American League.
And I will be handling the National League. What do you say we start with MVP first, Josh?
Sounds good. We'll start in the American League, the Superior League.
Says you.
The American League MVP race is an interesting one. It's really a three-horse race at this point between Mike Trout of the Angels, Alex Bregman of the Astros, Marcus Semien of the A's, and between the three, you can't go wrong. I mean, I think Semien's a slight tick behind the other two, but between Trout and Bregman, you can't go wrong. Just looking by wins above replacement, they're virtually tied by both Fangraphs WAR and Baseball Reference WAR. They're both otherworldly, incredible hitters, and it's really a matter of personal preference. Trout missed the last month of the season or so due to an injury, so that kind of brings down his numbers a bit, and that could be the decision point for a lot of voters. Personally, I'm still going with Trout. I know a lot of people are going to say Bregman, the whole playoff team factor, but personally that's never been a factor for me in the voting, and you could make the argument that Bregman is less valuable even by using that. Astros make the playoffs without Bregman easy. Their team is so loaded that you can make that argument, but I'm going Trout. I think we've spent too many seasons arguing for why not to give it to Trout, and I think by the end of this, if we look back on his career potentially as the best player of all time, and he only has one or two or three MVP awards, we're going to feel real stupid.
Yeah, no, Josh, I would agree with you there. I'd say the Astros are definitely a playoff team with or without Alex Bregman in their lineup. I mean, that lineup is just an absolute gauntlet with Jose Altuve, Carlos Correa, Michael Brantley, who they added in the offseason, and all that good stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I am normally one to feel as though the MVP should come from a playoff team, but I think Trout is the one and only exception of all time to that. So, yeah, my vote would go along with you to Mike Trout as well. Moving along to the National League, it was really a two-horse race all season long. Major League Baseball even ran those Belly versus Yelly commercials. They played a game of MVP where they were hitting home runs and hitting the ball around the park, basically like a game of horse if you've ever played horse in your backyard with the basketball hoop and whatnot. But Yelich got hurt with a few weeks left to go in the season, and the Brewers were out of playoff contention at that point. They then pushed their way into the playoffs without him. So in my opinion, that kind of pushed him out. And the Nationals just kind of came in and stole that. So I think Anthony Rendon at that point entered his name into the MVP race, but I still don't give it to him. I think Cody Bellinger from opening day, almost wire to wire, was an MVP favorite, and I think he will win the MVP this year. 47 homers, 115 RBI, 7.8 WAR, which is pretty ridiculous. And on top of that, he plays Gold Glove defense at three different positions: first base, right field, and center field. Those are all important positions to play good defense at, and Bellinger does all those very, very well.
Yeah, I think the main argument against Bellinger is that he had to cool off a little bit in the second half. He had the incredible start. He was on pace to break every record in the books, and then, of course, it cooled off. You have to. He wasn't going to pull a Barry Bonds on us. But he did pick it up in the final month of the season or so. I don't think you, again, this is another one, I don't think you can go wrong between Bellinger and Yelich. They're both phenomenal players. Neither one of them is undeserving. But for me, it comes down to they're both elite hitters. Yelich is a good defender. Bellinger is an elite defender. So I'm giving it to Bellinger as well. All right, so why don't we move on to the pitching side of it? We'll start with the American League Cy Young.
Sounds good.
Again, I'm feeling a two-horse race here, and it's the two Astros aces, Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander. Again, you can't go wrong here. It's a matter of personal preference. It's either the guy that's the ageless veteran, Justin Verlander, aging like a fine wine. He's just getting better the older he gets. He had another insane year. But then you look at Garrett Cole, and that's a guy that the Astros stole for pennies on the dollar from the Pittsburgh Pirates. And he just, this past season, 2019, posted the highest K per 9 rate and the highest strikeout percentage in MLB history. That's better than even 99 Pedro. And that was the most phenomenal pitching season I think any of us have ever seen. And Cole just won up to that. Now, those stats aren't league and era adjusted. Obviously, strikeouts as a whole are up a little bit more now than they were back in the 99, 2000s, all that. But still just a phenomenal year for Garrett Cole. You can't go wrong, but I like him as the American League Cy Young winner this year.
Yeah, I think we're really splitting hairs here, and I don't think you can run into that very often where the top two vote getters will be on the same pitching staff, which just goes to show how fantastic that Astros team has been all season. Alex Bregman's going to either win the MVP or finish second, and the top two vote getters in the Cy Young are both on the Astros as well. There's a reason that team won 107 games this season and only lost 55. They're just that good. But yeah, my vote goes along with you as well. I'm giving it to Garrett Cole just ever so slightly. I really like the storyline of Garrett Cole getting it because he's never won it before. Justin Verlander will probably be in the conversation again next season, as will probably Garrett Cole, but I'm predicting in a different league. I think he moves to the National League next season. But I think Garrett Cole also set the strikeout percentage record this season. And like Josh said, that broke Pedro's record, and that season was absolutely insane. So, yeah, I think I'd side with Josh again on this one. So I guess after that, we can move on to Rookie of the Year. We can go to the American League. Josh, what do you think there?
Oh, you need to hit a National League Cy Young.
Oh, I guess we can do that too. Maybe I just don't want to talk or something. So the National League Cy Young, if this was a mid-season award, I would say that Hyun-Jin Ryu would have gotten it absolutely unanimously. But he cooled off in the second half of the season, and how don't you? I mean, that just kind of makes sense. Hyun-Jin Ryu averages about 90 miles an hour on his fastball, and it's difficult to continue missing bats all season when that happens because, let's be honest, when you throw 96 miles an hour, you can afford to miss over the plate every so often, but you can't do that when you're a craftsman like Hyun-Jin Ryu. Max Scherzer had another fantastic season, another 243 strikeouts and 70 less innings pitched. That's just kind of his MO at this point. But it was an injury-riddled season, and I think had he have thrown the entire season, then I think we'd be having a different conversation. However, I think the man who's going to win the National League Cy Young is Jacob deGrom. I think he wins it for a second straight season. 255 strikeouts over 204 innings pitched. His whip was less than 1 walks and hits per innings pitched, which is insane. You don't really see that a whole lot. And his WAR was 7.0 as a starting pitcher, which you really rarely ever see that. Overall, Jacob deGrom, I think, was the most unhittable starting pitcher in the National League, and therefore he deserves the award.
Yeah, it's just going to be a lot of agreement here, I guess. I'm with you there. deGrom, back-to-back insane seasons. You'll see his ERA jumped about a run this year, but that's just because nobody on earth could sustain the great 2018 season he had.
Less than a
he
2
gave up.
ERA. Yeah.
He gave up a few more homers this year, and hey, everybody did. He still remained the staff ace that he is on a Mets team that made a little bit of noise in the second half, and I think they'll be threatening for the next year or two. But yeah, he's my pick. Again, Ryu, Scherzer, fantastic seasons, but deGrom's just the best in the league. So let's move it along to Rookie of the Year now.
I think we're going to find that both of these are pretty unanimous.
They are, yeah. We got a couple young sluggers that just burst onto the scene this year. In the American League, it's Yordan Alvarez, again of the Astros. The Astros have a chance here to sweep the 3 biggest awards in the league between MVP, Cy Young, and Rookie of the Year.
You don't see that ever.
No. Alvarez, insane. I mean, this is a guy that kind of came into the year as kind of an underrated prospect. A lot of people thought he was a first baseman without enough power for the position. I know I did. I know I did not have any sort of expectations for the kid, and he just started hitting on day one and did not stop. He posted a 178 WRC plus, 78% better than the average major league hitter.
And he didn't even play the whole season.
And he didn't. That's absurd. He managed to accrue 3.8 wins above replacement while not playing defense, which is incredibly difficult to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some other names in the American League. There's John Means with the Orioles, who doesn't get much love because he's on the Orioles. Spencer Turnbull, same sort of deal with the Tigers, a couple of young starters right there. Brandon Lau of the Rays, he had a hot start to the season, cooled off a little bit down the stretch, but you can't give it to anybody other than Alvarez. He's going to be a beast. He's a big part of the Astros' success and a big part of their future.
I would definitely agree. And Josh, you were saying that you didn't have a whole lot of expectations for Alvarez there. Well, the team that originally acquired Yordan Alvarez didn't either. The Astros acquired him from the Dodgers in the Josh Fields trade. Josh Fields is, if you don't know, no longer with the Dodgers. So, again, the Astros are picking up guys for pennies on the dollar, and they're making it work. But moving on to the National League, you're going to find that this is really just a one-horse race. One could say that it would have been a two-horse race had Fernando Tatis Jr. played the entire season. He's just an electric five-tool prospect player, but he was injured with a couple months left to go. So that really ended his campaign at the National League Rookie of the Year. Mike Soroka had a fantastic season, 22 years old, Canadian starter with the Atlanta Braves. But let's be honest, this is going to be unanimous. Pete Alonso set the rookie home run record, breaking Aaron Judge's record at 52. He hit 53, accrued a 5.8 WAR as a rookie. Don't see that a whole lot. And had 120 RBI on a team that really wasn't getting on base whatsoever until the second half of the season. He just had a fantastic season. It's Pete Alonso. He's my pick for NL Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, Alonso's a guy I was able to see here in the Arizona Fall League prior to the season, and you could tell he just had raw power that nobody else on that field can match. I mean, he was blasting foul balls farther than I've ever seen foul balls hit. Like, this kid is a monster. He had about the best season that he could in his first year. It's hard to see him moving up too much for that. He could work on his plate discipline a little bit, but are you really complaining? Are you really complaining about 53 bombs? No.
He's a rookie. 53 homers as a rookie. Come on.
And now, Fernando Tatis Jr. is an excellent talent. So is Mike Soroka. Those three guys
might win it any other year.
Yes, I'm really interested to watch these three careers going forward. It's just with the timing of it all, with the injury to Tatis, with just the sheer excellence of Alonso, he's my pick too.
I guess we can move on to Managers of the Year at this point.
Yeah, so I think we're both pretty much in agreement for both leagues that Manager of the Year is kind of a toss-up. There's some great candidates in both leagues. I think we each have one that we've ruled out from each league. For me, in the American League, I don't think it's going to Hinch. I mean, the Astros are a fine team. A.J. Hinch is a fine manager, but generally, the Manager of the Year award goes to one of the teams that exceeds expectations, and I think everyone expected the Astros to be a powerhouse.
Maybe not win 107 games, but
maybe not quite. But
it doesn't matter. They say we're expected to win 100 games in A.J. Hinch.
A.J. Hinch would have had to do a lot of things wrong for the Astros to not have a successful season. He deserves some credit. He managed a great team, but I don't know. Not my pick. Personally, for me, I'm going Rocco Baldelli. That's the rookie manager of the Twins. They, after a really surprising run back in 2017, they really fell back in 2018. They turned to Baldelli this season, and he righted the ship and took them all the way. The Bomba squad. It broke the MLB home run record, set the new one, one homer more than the Yankees, which I'm sure Yankees fans are real excited about.
I think they're feeling okay now, though.
Yeah, they are. But Baldelli, you can't ask for more from a rookie manager in a season, leading them to 101 wins, I believe it was.
101, yep.
You can't ask for more. I think he did a great job of managing a lot of injuries, a lot of talent in the lineup, and he used it to the best of his ability. The pitching staff, you look at the names and nothing jumps out to you, but he managed them well. I think it goes to him. Again, that's not a knock on Bob Melvin, Kevin Cash, Aaron Boone even. his guys are savages in the box. But that's not a knock on any of those guys. But Baldelli's my pick.
I would agree with you. Honestly, the Twins were a team that didn't even make the playoffs last season, winning 101 games and setting the home run record like they did. If you look at their lineup, it's not even there aren't a whole lot of all-stars on that lineup. I mean, Polanco made the all-star team this season, but otherwise, the Twins were doing it like Moneyball style, really, making a reference with Billy Beane there. Yeah, Baldelli's my pick as well. I think we're in agreement there. In the National League, the guy that you really can't give it to is Dave Roberts. The Dodgers won 106 games this season, and I don't think you can really point to him as the reason why. That roster is insane regardless. Bullpen's pretty good. Starting pitching is the best in the National League, and the NL MVP candidates on the roster as well. They may have set the single-season record for most wins in Dodger history, but I don't think that you can give it to him. Davey Martinez would probably win it any other year, the rookie manager with the Washington Nationals, but I'm going to give it to Craig Counsell. Last postseason, Counsell somehow finagled his way to a Game 7 in the National League Championship Series against the Dodgers, but it wasn't really flashy. But this year, Counsell's Brewers lost two of their top relievers from 2018 in Jeremy Jeffress and Corey Knebel to injuries. They traded their second-best hitter from last year's team in Jesus Aguilar and cut their top starting pitcher, Jules Chassin, last year. They lost their de facto number 2 starter, Wade Miley, to free agency. They also lost Christian Yelich to injury on September 10th. They still found a way to make the playoffs. This team is completely different in terms of guys that are contributing from where they were last season, and they still found a way to make the playoffs. So I'm giving it to Craig Counsell for just finding a way to get his team in.
I think this one, again, is splitting hairs.
Mm-hmm.
Craig Counsell, Davey Martinez are my top two. I have a little bit of trouble assigning too much of the Brewers' success to Counsell in those last couple weeks. I don't know how much of an impact the manager had on the success of his team over a 2-3 week period, especially when it was the pitching that really just went nuts those last couple of years. Had an ERA, I believe, under 3, or last couple of weeks, excuse me. That's not a knock on Counsell. I think he's a great manager. I think Davey Martinez is great as well. The Nationals got off to a real slow start. A lot of talks about them trading Rendon back in May, and he righted the ship real quick, even with a bullpen that had no idea what it was doing all year and really still doesn't. He got the most out of his ace starters. He got the most out of his star bats, and I think he did a very fine job. And I think we're seeing in the postseason what kind of a manager he is with how aggressive he's been with using Scherzer and Strasburg and Corbin out of the bullpen. And now postseason doesn't factor in here, but I think that's just another sign to me.
It's just kind of a microcosm of what he's done all season.
Yeah, as someone who can't watch every single Nationals game, it's nice to see on the big stage that he's still making what I believe are aggressive, smart decisions. So personally, he's my pick, but I'm not going to get too mad at anybody taking Counsell.
Yeah, no. Like Josh said, really splitting hairs there. And the last award that we're going to cover today is the Reliever of the Year, one that doesn't get a whole lot of love with all these other big awards and whatnot, but Reliever of the Year is really important. So I guess we'll move on to the American League for that.
Yeah, in the American League, I think there's one very clear choice, and it's Liam Hendrick of the Oakland A's. I mean, what a story. DFA'd last year, midway through 2018. He couldn't get anybody out. He clears waivers, goes down to AAA with the A's, works on his fastball, works on his delivery, finding some consistency there. He comes back up in August, September of 2018, and he's throwing upper 90s, like out of nowhere. And the A's even trusted him enough last year to use him as the opener in their wild card game against the Yankees. Now that we all know how that worked out. Not as well as they had planned, but coming into this year, he wasn't really a part of the bullpen picture again. He was on the roster. He wasn't really going to factor into the late innings or anything. And then Oakland's bullpen just imploded. Joakim Soria was a mess. Lou Trevino and Blake Trinan, two of the better relievers in the league last year, could not get outs. In comes Liam Hendriks and just posts the best season of any American League reliever. It's insane. He finished with 3.8 WAR as a closer, which is ridiculous. You never see that It's one of the it's the second best relief season since 2000, behind only Eric Gagne, which is a name.
That's quite a name.
Hendricks was insane. He set the Australian strikeout record. He set the A's relief pitcher strikeout record. Over 100 strikeouts in 80 innings. He was absurd. He really locked things down for the A's. He's my pick.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I don't think anybody else really deserve. I mean, there are deserving names in the American League, but Hendricks is really just on a pedestal of his own. Moving on to the National League, there are some guys that deserve it. Felipe Vasquez has had a pretty fantastic season, but I don't think we need to go there, do we?
No, I don't think he's going to be winning any awards anytime soon.
Not anytime soon. Seth Lugo
might be awarded a lengthy jail sentence, but other than that,
yeah, that's probably going to be his best award to date at this point. Seth Lugo had a good season for the Mets. Josh Hader had another fantastic season for the Brewers. Another 138 strikeouts and 37 saves with a 2.3 WAR as a reliever, which is very, very serviceable. Obviously, Josh Hader is used in many different ways, not just as a closer necessarily, but a high leverage arm. The Brewers use him all the time in different scenarios. But my pick goes to Kirby Yates of the San Diego Padres. 41 saves on a team that was not very good this season. I mean, they had a pretty decent first half, but trailed off in the second half. At the All-Star break, the Padres had 50 wins. 25 of those were saved by Kirby Yates. Half of their wins are on account of one guy, a 3.4 WAR as a closer, which, as Josh got to, 3.8 with Hendricks, 3.4 with Yates. You don't see that really ever either. 60 appearances, a WHIP less than 1.19 ERA. He was basically unhittable.
Yeah, Yates was incredible this season. I'm a little surprised the Padres didn't see what they could get for him at the deadline.
Agreed.
I'm not sure how much longer he'll be sticking around in San Diego. I'm not sure if he can replicate this season, but regardless, that's neither here nor there. An excellent season by Yates. I think he's the pick in the National League as well.
Well, it seems as though we've gotten through all of our awards here, Josh. Thank you for joining us on the California Glove podcast. We'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, have a great one.